You're listening to Data Center Therapy. Please take a number, and an engineer will be right with you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Data Center Therapy. I'm Matt Yette, and with me is my co-host, Matt Cozz. Matt, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
Great. As you can tell, that was a much shorter intro. I'm feeling much lazier, much more relaxed. It's towards the end of the week. I just want to take it easy this episode and talk with you, Matt, without agenda or purpose or, any kind of nefarious means.
I like that. Do we get a mimosa or something we can drink while we do this?
A beer mosa would be good right now.
There you go.
I don't have any right now, but speaking of that, if you're to ask me what's a real enjoyable, like, don't want to go 6%, 7% double IPA kind of thing, but as close to a beer mosa I've ever had is actually Schafferhofer. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
So it's like an orange peach 6-pack typically, and it's a German beer. It's truly half Hefeweizen and half grapefruit juice.
Okay.
It is as delicious as if there's anything that's ever been
citrusy,
breakfast beer, it's a true breakfast beer. It quenches your thirst, chuggable or sippable. It's like 2.8% alcohol, which is getting down into
that's one you can
territory.
have a couple of. Yeah.
A couple before 9 a.m. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a good one. I do enjoy that
nice.
Particular beer.
I think mojito is probably my summer hot outside drink of choice.
I love mojitos.
Yeah.
Weird little story. I used to be much bigger, but I've been a big Dave Matthews Band fan for a lot of my adult life, and they had a show back in, I want to say 2009 in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand, and
it's a nice
the group
venue.
the group that I was with, we ended up finding a place called the Zuri Bar, and that Zuri Bar had wonderful mojitos in the casino, and over the 2-night concert stand, we ended up
did they run out?
Drinking them out of lime. We ended up drinking them out of limes, or not lime, mint actually.
Mint. Okay.
Mint.
That makes a little
not
more
limes.
sense. You can get limes. It's the mint that's the hard one.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard that, but I want to call out the special guest, my printer, that decided just to wake up, warm up, and make a lot of noise just now. So yeah. So yeah, I appreciate it. At least it's not the old dot matrix, right? Because that would be.
What is it, the dot matrix with the paper fed, the tracks on the side that you get to peel off?
You're not that much younger than me, are you?
No, I use those. We had those.
Did you've owned a dot matrix?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. We can still talk.
I've also done IT for a long time, and a lot of the companies I've worked for have had those. I remember, I want to say it was like printing checks or something on them, and they came off of the sheet, and it was make sure everything gets lined up kind of a thing. Because I know how to run a printer. Evidently, that's a prerequisite.
Oh yeah, but after so many years, I just got so sick of. Well, I think the last great printer was the LaserJet 4100N. I remember back when I was in help desk, that was a workhorse. But at home, I had like I want to say an HP DeskJet 693C. Those numbers come to mind. And it was like square and boxy and had that center tray with the plastic cover on top that it spit out. And it was actually reliable. And then it seems like since 2000s or whatever, you had these multi-function scanner, print, fax, copier things that were $60. The carts were $40 to refill, and they failed nonstop.
I've attributed that to inkjet versus LaserJet, inkjet versus toner, right? And I finally I want to say this year, bought a new printer, and it's actually got toner in it, and it's been solid. It sits up here, and we print every other month or something, like 2 pages, right? So it's expensive for what we do, but it's there and it works whenever you ask it to print, which is amazing.
That was what I found with the $60 printers. If their printing mechanism still worked, they would drop off the network constantly.
Yes,
so
yes.
There's if I have to reset it every morning, that's not a convenience.
No.
So I have a Brother color LaserJet that I think I picked up for like $230. It was something, and it came with all the toners And the
Brother,
the
yeah,
basic
that's what I got.
yeah
Yeah.
the and it works, right? It
Yes.
stays online. Full disclosure, it just reset its network settings like this week, but I've had it for like 6 years without any trouble, so I had to it's all good now. But the toners that comes with the starter toners are set to give you an alert after a certain page count.
Yeah.
You can actually reset that count,
Of course.
and they'll go on for twice as long.
Right.
So
Right.
I have not refilled them yet, and I've had it for about 6 years.
That's
pretty good.
That's good. Yeah, it should take a minute. The roommate had it was a HP, but it was the same thing. It was a LaserJet, and it was wired, and I found in one of my old travel router things that I turned into a Wi-Fi hotspot hub, so it could be the Wi-Fi adapter, and gave that to him, and now we've got a wireless printer that can follow you around.
That is nice.
Yeah.
It was to a point with those Canon garbage printers that I was willing to go to FedEx, Kinko's, or whatever when I needed to print something. It was that bad where I'm like, I hate printers so much. And being, obviously
8
coming
cents
up
a
through
page,
help
but-
desk. Yeah, coming through help desk. Did you ever have to work with label printers?
Oh God.
Like USB connected label printers?
The worst ones I think were the zebra ones that were tiny, dedicated, like
They never worked.
never.
You're fighting drivers, Windows 98, XP, whatever, and they're a nightmare.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Anybody who comes out of school in IT nowadays who thinks they're going to go right to the top and the engineer, this and that, and
Yeah,
you
put your
got to go
dues
through
in.
help desk.
Yep.
It sucks. It really does. But I mean, you feel it. You feel the pain, and therefore, when you get to be an architect or an engineer, you understand what people go through and who have to use the kit. So you try to make it as easy and well worn as possible.
Yes.
So, all right. So, what have you been up to lately? I mean, let's kind of go off topic here and see what have you been doing outside of work lately?
Outside of work, I just did. I know you are familiar with it, the backcountry discovery route. I just did a
Yes.
couple of sections of that. Took a long weekend, 4 or 5 days off, and we did 2 sections of that, which was actually super fun. My big F-150 made it through there, and
That's nice. No
only
damage
broke
this
a
time?
couple- we
well, actually, since you asked.
well, seeing as you say that, we did find a stump in the road with the running board. So at least it's the running board.
Oh,
Yeah. And there were some giant holes to crawl through, and I did lose the hitch cover that I had.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's par for the course for you. Did you have Devin spotting for you?
Actually, I made her drive. So
Really?
Yeah. So
Did she like it?
She did. It was actually kind of fun.
That's good.
We found a couple of washouts that were along the road, and you have to crawl down into it and then crawl up out the other side. And she was driving,
So were you outside the vehicle? Like
I
yeah.
hopped out and waved her through, and
Yep.
she tipped the truck over. And
Yeah, my wife loves, she's super capable. She drives a stick, so there's that. And full disclosure, I think anybody who can drive a stick, they seem like a more capable person to me.
you have to pay attention a little bit more.
They just seem to understand things more. It's a practical skill, and it seems to apply to the rest of their personality and way of life. Anyway,
Yeah.
so she loves driving the Discovery, the Disco 2, and so I would feel confident doing the same thing that she would love to just say, get out of the car and spot me. I'll drive it. Yeah, last summer you and I and our SOs went. We did what? Wabder 3, I think, from
4.
Kashmir to Chelan.
4.
4.
Yeah.
Yep, Kashmir to Chelan. That was a lot of fun. I
Mhm.
definitely need to do that again soon.
I did sections 2 and 3. We did sections 2 and 3, so all the way up Natchez, all the way up into Chelan or Wenatchee, I guess. The weird bit is, so the world's on fire, right? I looked at our GPS track for where we went, and I did the fire overlay, and we went through what is now on fire.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Seeing some of the stuff up north of Enumclaw that was on fire a couple of years ago was crazy. It was weird. You're coming through the trees, and it's green, and there's trees, and it's a normal forest like you'd expect. You break through those into this clearing, and then in front of you is just this forest of dead wood, which was surreal.
So I left you alone given that you were on vacation, no phone calls, and not that I would have gotten through anyway. I almost thought about raising you on the 2-meter.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I would have bounced down to you. I don't think I don't think we each reach a common repeater at that point.
You could have sent me an APRS message.
Do you think that would have bounced to you?
So, I mean,
gosh, I wish I would have thought of that. I would have tried that.
If looking back on it, because I had it running in the truck all the time, looking back on it, it actually had pretty solid signal. I got out every time I beaconed. Pretty much every time I beaconed from the truck, it got out to
APRS.is or whatever?
To something.
Made its way to an iGate.
Yep, and it got onto the net and database. So, I mean, I assume
cool.
it would have gotten the other way most of the time.
Did you make contact with anybody? Any QSOs?
No.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think that is. Yeah.
That was still one of my favorite parts of our trip, and we weren't out of eyeshot most any time, and yet just talking over the radio was a lot of fun. It gave a great feel to the caravan. Yeah. So to speak.
So, real quick for some of the nerds, we just used a bunch of acronyms without really talking about what they are. APRS is Automated Packet Reporting System. So the truck has I actually soldered it all together, did a little breadboard, made it up. It's got a GPS receiver, a Bluetooth receiver so I can send the data to my phone, and it takes GPS data, packetizes it, and broadcasts it over the radio. You can get some rudimentary like texting. That's what we were talking about is maybe that. So.
And the iGate is basically somebody who's got an antenna who's receiving that kind of data. And on the back side of it, they are obviously plugged into the internet. So what it does is it takes that packetized data and uploads it to a site, which aprs.is, which is basically just a FI. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's basically like a Google Maps with all these waypoints, and you can say, look up this call sign, and it'll show over the last however many days or hours that you choose. It will show what any reported packets. You can even get the raw packet dump and say, oh, this is really what that iGate received, and I think it even says who heard it and uploaded it as well.
There's a whole rebroadcast thing. So if I hear a message that is supposed to be rebroadcast, I can rebroadcast it. You'll get weather.
Speaking in the terms that we're familiar with, packets, right? It's in a world that we live in more often.
And think more like mesh Wi-Fi kind of a thing, though really small packets and less throughput, I guess, would be the appropriate assessment.
Can I change our shared lab alerts to your APRS address and alert you when things go down and whatnot over APRS?
I guess.
I'm half joking. It would be great just to flood your work. Whoa, something's down. And why's my radio pinging me about my server?
I mean, there's a whole thing. Part of me wants to, remote data monitoring for something and use HF and packet data and blah, blah, blah. And then there's this whole concept of encrypted data, not encrypted data, that kind of stuff. That's yet a whole nother thing. So technically, I guess you could.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. When he starts complaining about me alerting him over the 2-meter radio network.
I just turn the truck off.
Right.
So how about you? What have you been doing?
All of my spare time and money is going into the backyard. So we might have talked about it, but basically when we bought the house here, we renovated the inside, and then we were like, okay, we need the front yard, and so we built a front deck/porch, redid the lawn, landscaping, little retaining wall, all of that. Did the siding, new garage doors, and then the backyard was going to be our next. And the back was big. We're on almost 1/3 of an acre.
That's pretty good.
The area is pretty good, and the backyard was fine. It had a big deck, albeit old, and the lawn was kind of swampy and slopey and fine, but not great. And so we're like, okay, we had this old lean-to that needs to be torn down, this fence that I probably could have blown over, and just so basically we just completely terraformed the whole thing. We leveled the whole thing and put up a new fence, retaining wall, graded it, got a poured concrete stamped patio, and built a pergola over half of it.
Stamped, so it looks like rock, like.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I sent it to my dad. He's like, "Wow, where'd you get those pavers?" I'm like, "Pavers."
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Got a hot tub back there now. All this, and of course, the best part is the infrastructure. We've got 100 amp service out back there.
Nice.
Got natural gas running out there. Got Ethernet running out there and cold water. And so I put in a 4-gallon hot water heater at the sink, so we'll have hot water too.
Nice.
And
is it an instant hot water heater or like an actual tank?
It's not instant. It's a little Bosch 4-gallon.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's plug and play. It runs on 110. So
well, that's
easy
nice.
peasy. Yeah. We've got natural gas for the fire pit, and then the 2 grills that are growing out there, and then the 100 amp runs a 60 amp circuit out to the hot tub, and then all my outlets and all that. And I'm using screened twisted pair Ethernet to ride with the electrical. No, don't tell anybody I said that. But it seems to not have any interference, and I'm running Wi-Fi out there, so nice. I've got an access
point
under the kitchen.
So you put an access point out there? Nice.
Right. I'm all formed up and ready to pour the concrete countertops, which I'm very nervous about. But with that means we're really kind of nearing the end here. I'm going to do vinyl flooring as the cabinet box siding. Actually, okay. I was looking into cedar,
like the strips that stick together.
Yeah, the click together, and the vinyl doesn't have that that wooden core, so the moisture is not really an issue. And it looks like wood. It's got texture. It's beautiful. Listen, you call up a lumber yard and try to get smooth 1/2-inch cedar, and it's a whole thing. You'd think you ask for the guy's kidney. So
$7 million later, yeah.
Right. So
we've got that in the kitchen here.
Yeah. So now all these big, I use this website called Avaza. I don't know. It's basically a little project manager to let me sign up for a free account, and I can just basically put a bunch of tasks and then break them into groups. And so that's how I like to organize. And that way, if something comes to mind that I know I'll forget, if I just say, I'll remember that, I just put it in the checklist. And over the course of 7 months, it builds up and then breaks back down as I complete tasks. Well, now, because I'm nearing the end, I'm getting into the fun stuff, right? I want all this in here so I can do this. And one of those things is, I realize all of this with the house. I love lighting. Home automation is a thing.
Right.
But one of the cooler things is the lighting of it. And this is basically adventures in individually addressable LED light strips.
Okay.
And so we have, because it used to be a deck off the back of the house that was raised, obviously. So what it is, instead, we tore the deck out. There's about a 6-foot landing that's at the door level of the back of the house, a sliding glass door.
Okay.
But then there's probably 2.5 feet drop to the lower patio. So between the two, we've got this retaining wall, poured wall, and then in a certain section of the wall under the pergola, there's steps down, the transition. So on top of that wall is now a cap, like a 2-inch poured concrete cap that overhangs the patio side of the wall by 1.5 inches. Well, under that wall lip, I'm going to put LED light strips.
Nice.
And also going to do LED light strips on the inside of the kitchen U and the outside of the breakfast bar for lighting.
So you're gonna
the problem is trying to learn about how to dim and do power and worry about voltage drop and everything.
And
so that's been a challenge.
Right?
Yeah. But you can buy these cheap crap junky Wi-Fi LED controllers that are basically a power supply and a thing all in one. But I went the more difficult route, but more fun. You mentioned it, soldering, all this, putting together. I'm leveraging these Node MCU boxes, which is this ESP8266 chip.
Okay.
And I've got these are basically Arduinos.
Right.
And I'm going to sneeze. Pardon me. So I've got these, they're basically Arduinos, and they take 5 volt, they run 3.3 volts and they're a bunch of GPIO pins.
Yeah.
And you can flash them with whatever. They've got a Wi-Fi chip in them. I got 3 of them for $14 total.
And I think I saw you say something that these chips, these boards had more processing power, more memory than your first computer, right?
Yeah, I think they're like 80. Apparently you can overclock them too.
Okay,
they come standard at 80 megahertz. And can be clocked to 160, and they come with 4 megs of onboard flash.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's used for RAM or anyway. My 286 was 16 megahertz, and I had a meg of RAM and a 40 megabyte hard drive.
Screaming.
So Okay, my hard drive was more robust than the 286, sure, but
But you've got Wi-Fi out there, so you can access your network storage, right?
I gave it 5 volt, and within 5 seconds, it was responding to ping.
Nice.
It's just like it's amazing. And then so I loaded it and I ran the ESP flash tool for my Mac and gave it a bin image for this library called WLED. And WLED can leverage one of the GPIO pins that you hook up to the data lead on the LED strips, and that's how it tells it to do all this stuff. And the WLED is already written to do basically, chase patterns, everything.
Do you address like LED 1, 2, 3, 4 that way, or just?
I believe WLED kind of does some of that for you. You set up segments, and it can be the whole strip. And I'm, I know a lot of people use these for. I found this one guy on there. He's got an amazing YouTube channel, and basically Clark Griswold, his house, a little more classy, but he set up year-round LED lighting that he obviously instead of just Christmas lights, which is nice because it's not like ugly old, not turned on Christmas lights year round, right?
They're hidden and mounted nicely. And...
They're exactly. Yeah. You don't see them ever, so only when they're on. And like sports games, 4th of July. Can you imagine setting up like a flag chasing?
It's like cool. Like what they do at the top of the Columbia Tower or whatnot. Make it green and blue for the Seahawks or whatever, that kind of thing. Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be cool. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Me, I'm not a huge. I've had hue bulbs for a decade now. Yeah. I'm not a big color. I've realized I'm not a big set of different colors. I like different tones of white, and I think we talked about home automation, the circadian cycle going from a cool white to a warm white as the night goes on. I like that, and I'm not a full brightness light kind of guy either. Any room, like I'll go into the bedroom, and my wife will have the overhead lights on, and I'm like, oh, turn those lights on. Just keep the lamps on. I like ambient light, not direct light.
Right.
Unless I'm
the
cooking.
Window or something like that. Unless you have to look at what you're doing. Yeah.
Yep.
Nope. I'm right there with you on that one. Try not to turn lights on when I get up in the middle of the night. That kind of a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've got a 5-volt transformer that can provide 300 watts. So I got plenty of juice on this guy, and I'm gonna use terminal blocks and all this to basically feed 3 sets of these. So
nice.
You can hack it to use multiple GPIO pins. I'm just gonna, for $13, I'm just gonna use each one to basically drive a single strip or singles. One of them, the wall one's gonna actually have 2 strips tied together. So that'll be one controller, and then one controller for the breakfast bar, and then one controller for the other side of the wall, that kind of thing. So that's what I've been up to and researching. And the problem is, you have, and for me at least, when you have so many options, we're talking about X. Let's say there's a billion different ways to do it. I have trouble sussing out which way to go because
too many choices, right? Yeah,
too many choices and so many opinions that this is the way to do it. So I settled on 5-volt strips, over 12 volt, over 24 volt. Yeah. It just seems to be the most popular, and therefore, if I have problems, I'll have the most resources for help at that point.
That's absolutely a good way to make a decision, right?
It's inexpensive. It's not so bad.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, I set something on fire and it burn it up, and that's that. As long as it's not the house, I'll be all right.
I've looked at, I've toyed around with a similar kind of idea, but like putting them behind the TV and trying to get that hooked up with whatever's playing. So if it's red on the TV, it's kind of red behind.
The amber light.
That kind of a thing, right? That sounds kind of fun.
So that is exactly what you could do you would need an individually addressable LED strip to do that, but they have that now, from what I understand.
I've seen it. I've seen it done. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is cool. We've talked personally offline about AI and all that kind of ML, all that stuff. I think for video games and whatnot, immersion is the goal.
Yeah.
Whether that's AR or VR or whatever, I don't care what the technology is for it. I think, but the more immersive you can make a game, sensory immersion, if you can make me feel like I'm in the game or whatever part of it, that's the goal. And something with a movie where you can kind of light up, that if you can make more than you can make that TV border kind of blend away, the better.
So it's not just this line to
Are you going to do it?
Eventually.
I don't think that's going to be a major project. I think that
there shouldn't be. You just reminded me. I had my first failure of a device. We just had a power outage, and I came back when the power came back at like 2 a.m. or something. The light switch for the back lights is I want to say it's a GE switch.
Okay.
and you can hear it when you flip the switch. You can hear the little
Yes.
solenoid trip in the back. So it's sitting there
Yep.
going click, click, click,
Ooh.
click, 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 click. Yep. So
What's the wireless technology? Z-Wave?
it's Z-Wave, but it's the
Z-Wave, yeah.
only one that's done it. The only one that's failed.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that could happen to, anything.
Mm-hmm. I've reset it. I pulled the power on it. Right now, it's sitting halfway out of the box with the one wire disconnected, so it's not just sitting
The
there.
solenoids are pretty noisy in those, aren't they?
It's loud.
I turn
enough
on
you
my
notice it.
my shower fan, which is smart,
Mm-hmm.
and it's basically,
Yep.
click.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's been fun. Cozz, I am a little hesitant to get into anything that's soldering,
Mm-hmm.
and solder makes our world go round.
It
So
does.
I'm not poo-pooing solder. I'm poo-pooing my skill set
Mm-hmm.
in terms of I very much like connectors and plugs and things because it's a lot less messy. And there's this guy, I can't remember his name, but he does a lot of Apple device soldering. And I have an old 2008 unibody MacBook
Mm-hmm.
that basically a cap failed, the capacitor failed in it, and it's a pretty common thing. My symptoms are exact, and I have the actual replacement that I could solder in, but it's like I have to take that mesh and take up the old solder and clean it and this and that, and it's such a small scale, and I'm like, I would love to take this on a project, but but my goodness, it feels
But no,
I feel like I don't have the maestro hands to do it. And
There's the other one that I've read about. I haven't ever tried, but a lot of those integrated boards they do, of course, on a factory line and whatnot. So sometimes you'll have a board or something fail, and the fix is to throw it on some parchment paper and throw it in the oven.
it'll fix the board,
So right,
or
so
it'll come off and melt into the paper.
no, so like the broken piece is the solder joint physically mechanically broke or something. So you throw it in the oven and it remelts everything and reflows it
Sure.
just for the half a second that it needs or whatever.
But how
I have no
precise do you
idea.
have
I've
to
never
be?
done it. I've read about it as something. It shouldn't take much. I mean,
Well, here's the thing. I would worry about going over.
right.
Or is it going to stay in place? It's not going to run.
the capillary action should keep it where it needs to go. And there isn't that much solder on there. It's not like it's going to melt into a puddle on the bottom, right? So you're
Okay.
heating it up for all of that to
Yeah.
just reflow itself and make that connection again.
Yeah.
It's crazy what you end up doing.
So I'm waiting on some plastic standoff posts to mount it to a bracket there because the holes don't line up. I'd rather not make it mount it upside down because it's pretty to see like the chip side of things. I'd like that to be facing out, and then I don't have a hot glue gun either, which you apparently can be used for mounting.
Sure. Yeah.
It doesn't conduct, right?
Right? When I was looking at doing the box for all the APRS stuff in the truck, I think that was one of the options. But one of the tasks I had to do, one of the things I was doing was mounting the GPS antenna, and I didn't want all of that stuff rattling around in there as you drive down this dirt road, right?
It's a great idea.
Yeah, I went with 2-part epoxy for that.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's nice.
Yep.
Yeah, I got this like 9-inch by 7-inch plastic box with basically a plastic. It looks like a breadboard, but it's not a breadboard as a mounting plate. It's just plastic with a bunch of holes in a grid that are like 3 millimeter holes. So you could theoretically take a real thin plastic standoff post, nut it to the back of it, and then screw down into that standoff. And that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
So and then you can take the board out. You can mount the box, drill your holes, put a bung in or whatever, a soffit, and then you could just work on that breadboard and then mount it to the box, which is nice. I'm looking forward to it. And
nice, that'll be fun.
You've seen it before. I've got a million little parts on Amazon that I got to order that too. Bing, 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 bing. And over the next 4 days, I sit here waiting like a kid on Christmas for all this stuff to get delivered.
And then of course the stuff on Amazon's like you want one and it's a box of 20.
Oh.
So you end up with a ton of leftover parts, and you just need
I think
to do
I told
another
you
thing.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Shrink wrap. Like the starter kits are the bane of my existence because chances are I don't need a ton of anything. So the starter kits are good until I run out of the one size that I use for everything. So now I've got all this shrink wrap that if you ever have like
Shrink
hair
tubing.
thick, if you have any hair thick wires, I got more shrink tubing than you'd ever need. I've never found a wire that would go through it.
Right.
But I got a billion
some.
of them.
Yeah.
Oh, starter kits.
Picking up there's actually a heat gun for like stripping paint was one of the best ones. For the longest time, I'd use the side of the soldering iron to shrink that heat tubing, or a lighter or something like that.
I have a heat gun.
Getting a heat gun made a huge difference because nothing then charred or burnt.
I actually used it outside in the backyard just now. One of the pieces of the countertop forms, they use this PVC blend.
Mm-hmm.
And what the countertop forms are is I've got my you can do it a million ways, right? But ultimately I built the quote unquote cabinets with 2x4s, and then I put OSB on top. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that I put Durox cement backer board. Mm-hmm. And so that's going to be my underlayment surface for the concrete pour. Around the outside, I ordered this stuff from Concrete Countertop Solutions or whatever out of Pennsylvania, and they are PVC type forms that have a lip, and you screw them into the edge around the entire countertop, and it forms that drop off for you. And then when you pour, they stay in place. And then when it sets up, you snap them off. It's great.
Nice.
But what it comes with also is I ordered a sink form, which is basically that similar material, but in a long strip that's very flexible, but not incredibly flexible. So if you've got really tight radiuses on your sink, I took the heat gun out, bent it at that corner, and then it's got a strip of adhesive on the bottom you peel off and stick it to the insides of the sink. You roll your bead of silicone caulk, and Bob's your uncle.
There you go.
Right, so I used the heat gun for that.
Nice. I
already had silicone down too, so I ended up heating that up. It's always something with me. Don't get me wrong. Nothing ever goes off with without a hitch.
Yep.
Well, what's next on the plate then for you?
What is it? We just harvested all of our plums off of the plum tree, so I actually need to. I've got another need for it as well, but I need to build a box so that a fermentation chamber actually, so you can make plum wine out of it, because it's just a bit cold in the garage.
Those are the fruits of you had some gardening planter boxes going in earlier in the year, right?
Yes, but the plums come out of a tree, so the tree has been out for. I mean, it's been there. It's been in the house. It's been here since we moved in.
Very, very nice. Well, I'll be looking forward to those growlers of plum wine coming my way. Yeah.
750 ml bottle. There you go.
I'll take that. Yeah. So that's good to hear that things are going well on your end. I'm hoping to have you guys over for some barbecue pretty soon here. Shortly.
Delish.
Yes. And anybody listening, if you want an invite, reach out to us at podcast@ivoxy.com. Yeah. Yeah, that's about it for me too, Matt. This was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. I was just gonna, kind of muddle through and complain.
Ramble for a minute, yeah.
No complaints really. It's pretty good. Usually left to my own devices, it can get pretty negative.
There was every now and then. There was looking outside right now. It's not been that bad, but Monday was surprisingly smoky. Like all of a sudden Monday afternoon, it was just like the clouds rolled in. So I've been watching that, paying attention to that, and it's been surprisingly good up here in North Bend.
That's good. Yeah, we're a little farther west and north of you, but it's remarkable. We went outside in the morning, and I'm like, I could taste it on the back of my throat. It does not take long to harsh your throat up on that.
No, it doesn't.
So saying some prayers and hoping everybody out Eastern Washington's safe.
Oregon, California too, yeah.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, y'all. Well, thanks again for listening to another episode of Data Center Therapy. On behalf of my co-host, Mr. Vimet Vacazolino, I'm Matt Yette. Have a good one, everyone.